Day 2 working on Ryan's car here. Last night we just kind of had fun and got a little bit intoxicated off some really good peanut butter chocolate whiskey. Highly recommend, 10 out of 10. But we got his engine out. That was kind of the main goal. Get everything torn down. Wanted to get the trans off, but we were not going to go through with all that in the process of everything last night, and we kind of made a mess of the shop. So we're back Day 2, got everything cleaned up, ready to start tearing into this thing today. We're going to go ahead and lift this thing up, pull the trans off. Assess the clutch, we're not going to pull it off yet. We will probably just get the trans off and then start tearing the intake off. Kind of go from there. We discovered a leaking injector last night. I mean, it was just kind of pissing fuel out of it. Not 100% sure why. It seems like somebody else's error previously. So we'll go through, assess that, try and fix it. I noticed one vacuum line from like the fuel filter up to the back of the intake here is just non-existent. So we'll get that taken care of. Yeah, pretty much let's get tearing into this thing. Show you how to change an E46 clutch, which actually is a single mass conversion. Typically most of you are probably going to do this underneath the car, so it's going to be a little bit different, but figure while I have this out I'd give you a better visual of what you're looking for what you can't see in the trans tunnel when you're under the car. But first things first, you have to disconnect your exhaust, get that out of the way. You need to then disconnect the drive shaft, all pretty easy stuff. Generally your exhaust is going to be like 13 mil bolts. You're going to want to go ahead and drop the trans cross member. You're going to want to do the 13s on the trans mounts themselves, and then the 4 13s on the cross member, drop that out of the way, and then use an 18 socket and an 18 wrench to get the Jubo bolts out, which I just learned that it's called a Jubo and not a Guibo. So there's that. But yeah, you also need to come over here, do the 213 on your slave cylinder and disconnect your reverse switch. You'll do all that under the car. You'll come up to this side, you'll unbolt your engine mount so you can kind of rock the motor, and if it's in the car you're going to kind of angle it down if you can. And then from that point, you are going to get up in here and start disconnecting the bolts, which I tend to start with these E12s up here on the starter. So go ahead and blast them out. Which, if you're doing this under the car, probably need roughly a foot and a half of extension to get these. But we'll get these two E12s out here. And we'll get ourselves a hammer to knock the starter off. There's a little dowel right here at the top, which it's never been off. It's probably pretty snug on, so I'm assuming under the car you probably get like some long extensions and a hammer and essentially do the same thing. Or you can commonly you can take the intake off and do the same thing, but I prefer not to if I don't have to. So a couple good whacks and our starter is free. Now we'll go ahead and get the rest of these trans bolts. So like I said, E12s for these up here on the starter. Next we're going to use, what is this, an E14 for the four larger bolts. One on the side here, one at the very top left, top right, and then down here next to the exhaust. So we'll go ahead and get them free now. Break that guy loose. Okay, got them loose. Now we can use our impact. Set those to the side. Now we're going to need E10s for all They bought them smaller bolts, which I'm not really sure why they made them this small. Maybe because it goes to the oil pan, but we'll start zapping these. And it'll just be 3 of them. 2 on the bottom and then 1 up close to the starter. So now we've got it, all our bolts out. It's pretty much ready to go ahead and separate. It seems like it's gonna play nice today. Actually, we're gonna drop this down a little bit. Just in case. They like to get stuck on the dowels on the back of the engines. Rubber gets in there a little better. Maybe. It's a little easier when the headers aren't there. Let's see if I can just fucking handle it. Or hammer. Like a hammer. She is snug on that one. Alright, so it's popped off the dowels now. It should come home free. Got one little 10-mil we forgot about.
I remember which one you're talking about too. Holding that shield on.
Yeah. I always forget this thing. Now it should come free. And there's your transmission. There it be. Alright, so we'll set our transmission to the side. Next thing's up. We're gonna get all these pressure plate bolts off. There's like 6 milliseconds. Hopefully they're not too tight on it. They are. We love that. Ain't too much left here, bud. It's like kind of breaking apart. Got our pressure plate off, clutch disc out. This thing is pretty spanked. You can generally, in my opinion, tell when the grooves are going out of the clutch and kind of starting to get a little crunchy. I don't know if get that ASMR up in here. We got quite a few hot spots. I don't know if you can tell if I wave it around. A couple hot spots around here. So if you run into the case like you typically do with these hex bolts, they like to strip out a lot, which is not fun, and I currently don't have the right size extractor. I think I broke it, honestly. So what you can do, as long as you're replacing everything, you can get a grinder here and cut flush right to, you can kind of get the head of the bolt off here. I don't know if you can really see that or not. You want to get that head off, and ideally not be left with this, but if you are, you at least most of the tension's off and you can just spin them out freely. But if you do get them flush, you just get in there, tap this thing, get it off. So next, we will get in here. We got a 19 on these flywheel bolts, which generally these are Loctited, so they'll be a little tight. So you're definitely going to need something holding the crank steady. There's 1, 2, 3. I might have already done this one. 4, 5. Which this will be a little easier with the engine in the car, because obviously it's not going to be bobbing around. That's all of them. Oh, pop this one. And one more. Now get an impact on there, zap these out. Probably gonna want to wear gloves for this because if you're like Ryan, you got a ton of clutch dust everywhere, which also tends to smell pretty bad too. Get Johnny off here. Lovely. Get our bolts over here. Now we're gonna go ahead and get this intake manifold off of here. Pop both of those off. Next step, you're going to want to start tearing this harness down here. So we'll go ahead and take our plug off the Diza, undo cam sensor, lower Vanos solenoid, our thermostat piece. Go ahead and bring all this down through. Going to take that sensor off. The sensor on the oil filter housing adapter. Come down here, you're going to unplug the exhaust cam sensor from the harness, and that will just hang out behind here. And next we'll unbolt this piece. Alright, so we'll go ahead and pop the bolt for our dipstick loose. Kind of get that out of the way. Pop our bolt back in. Alright, so next we're going to kind of pop this main body of the harness piece off, which I have a 10mm here. Normally there's a 10mm nut there and there, but those two are missing already. Okay, so I kind of pulled this power steering line out just a little bit. We have the dipstick tube disconnected. This is loose from all sides. So now we need to get in here, unplug the alternator, the other plug on the back of the oil filter housing. That guy right in there. We'll unplug the idle air control valve. IAC. Go IACing. Okay, that's popped off now. That's everything from the front. Now come down here, unplug our throttle body. And I believe we just have our power to the alternator here, which I think is a 17. Set that guy down, pull the power wire off, put our bolt back so we don't lose it. Go ahead and pull that through. I'm gonna get some of that stuff out of the way. Right here, this one kind of similar to like O2 sensors. You're just gonna pull it and it's gonna disconnect. Then we just have one right here on the back of the intake. We already unplugged it, but you would have your camshaft sensor. Do you remember what sensor this is? Whatever that is, you need to unplug that as well. Then, so possibly a coolant temp sensor. We're not 100% sure, but it gets unplugged. And then your oil level sensor. It's kind of always tend to be a pain, so I just usually get the needle nose on them. And there you have the engine harness. So I'm gonna pop this top PCV hose off of there. We already went ahead and did it, but you need to take the injector harness out, which there's a plug on this top Vanos solenoid, and then there's these little like spring clips you need to get out of the way and then pull the harness out. But first you need to unplug this top sensor here. And then there's another PCV hose that runs under here, around here, and down to here. Be gentle, because you'll probably break it. Luckily this one was new. All this actually seems new, so it didn't break, but we went ahead and got that out of the way. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and then go underneath and disconnect from our dipstick. The hose that goes from the dipstick up over here. Kind of just leave that to the side at the moment, and we'll go ahead and undo our big, it says 16 or 17, the lower mount bolt to the intake itself. This side of the block, which thing's just got tight on me. which I think actually might be a 16. This kind of feels a little bit loose. 16 or 17, you'll figure it out. Okay, definitely 16. Okay, now that's free. Now what's left is all the 11s on this top side here, and our intake will be free. So go and get our 11 impacts. Careful not to drop these. Oh, there's already one missing. Grab your nuts. So we only have 7 here, but typically you should have 9 in total. So there's 2 missing off of here. But now, intake should just pick right up one off of there. Really, it's not horrible. And that's how you remove your intake. Okay, so now is a really good time to investigate your coolant hard lines here, which I'm sure it's possible to replace these with the intake on. Maybe not so much the upper one, maybe this one, but I would take it off anyways to attempt. That's not what you want to see. Appears that this one leaks as well.
If you look back in through here, up against the block, you can see this same blue crap there. So that one's definitely leaking too.
And while you're here, you're gonna want to go ahead and take alternator, your power steering pump off, and go ahead and do the gasket over here on the oil filter housing. As you can see, they have a very common tendency to leak. Always good to grab new crush washers for all these oil lines too. This one's not so bad, but for sure on the lower half. Just want to throw new copper crush washers on those. Alright, so Ryan's back with us. Say hi, Ryan.
Hi.
And he just looked down and found this nice little O-ring right there. And I think we found our mystery leak, and I think that O-ring goes right up top here. We also discovered in a very cinematic iPhone shot of oil draining.
Ooh, that's not good.
All that goodness. But it smells like fuel. We don't think it's a head gasket problem. We're gonna keep our fucking fingers crossed and hope for the best. So let's keep plugging away on this thing.
Caught myself in a bad trip, knowing that I can't leave. The only heaven I ask for is one where I ain't me. Put some faith in yourself, put the rest in me. Put some heart in your feelings, put the rest in your dreams. Caught myself on a good day, even though I feel like hell. How can you go and find true love if you never found yourself? I'm not anxious when I smoke. The drinks help me know what I feel and felt. Save me from all my lows, and they say drugs don't help. Drinks on me if we pouring up. I'm depressed, so I gotta get rich. Trust me, my heart's broke enough. Freak out, I smoke too much and I might have to freak out. Been climbing long, I might not even be up at my peak now. Caught myself in a drug state, need me some Cereal T. Said to call you when I come back down, man, that's barely me. Just saw God in the hallway, saw my vision in 3. Sort of go sing like Broadway, vertigo over the scene. ass on the Saturn, you know it is fat. Bless. Put your hands together like you're praying for the best. Cause the devil got a quarter and the homie got a tank. And my mama got a mortgage, so I got a stash. My timid tentatively. I am a sinner with a tenant at least. 10 to the church plate, 10K the lease. 10K for the head, that's taken from me. I have the East Coast underground crown. Who really gon' take it from me? Take it from me. This shit is not for the weak. Huh. All the love that's in my eyes, it fades away. Feelings always moving, they don't wait. Drank the night before and I can feel it when I wake up. Hanging on to anything I can change.
Alright, while Christian's doing that, Zach's gonna pull off the alternator and power steering pump.
Always put everything back if you can. If you don't remember where it went, put it back. Two bolts there. One lower bracket here. Alternator. These are always pretty snug on there. Well, hey, got a little connector. Ew. The forbidden sauce. Oh yeah.
Ooh. I'm hopeful that it's just fuel. Almost got the injectors back in here.
Yep.
Look at that. Cause I really don't want to look at that anymore. That's.
I really don't like that this front one snapped on whoever was in here last.
So go ahead and cut these OEM zip ties. That guy there. Oh yeah, that already broke. Yeah, so half of that is inside, apparently.
What about a hook pick? Well, I guess.
My pinky is one. Same thing.
Same thing?
You're really lucky I just got all this shit in.
yeah, I'm very
Good
lucky.
timing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a good thing I didn't finish that Rock Auto order yet.
Is the Rock Auto order ever really finished?
And the great part is we're getting ready to do all of this 1, 2,
And then Ethan.
3, 4 more times.
Yep.
Looking at you, Ethan. Okay, we up in here. Popping the oil pan off. Doing stuff.
Make sure you get too big of an extension.
What is this? years ago, we didn't have any of this. Maybe 3 years. Probably 3 years.
Something like that.
That's wild.
Alright, get ready to catch it.
Give me an impact. You got gloves. It's probably not even going to come off that easily. Oh. There's a bolt.
Stuck on the gasket and the pickup tube.
There you go. Gas.
Yep. Smells like a whole lot of gas up here.
Scoot a loot on over here. We're
Couple
gonna
weapons.
zap this water pump thermostat off quick. Oh.
Oh!
Oh, right on that. Cool. Well, there's where all the coolant was hiding. You already had a metal one, but this thing's kind of foul. Back it up, Terry. 13 up top. Everything's a hammer when you want it to be. Duh.
Is that? Hold on.
That's holding the engine up.
Yes, and it's still bolted here.
Okay.
That's what we needed. Gross. It's that Walter White meth up in there. Okay, so we got everything cleaned up on here. Got all mating surfaces clean, wiped down, and we're ready to throw some stuff on. So we got a fresh oil pan gasket, oil filter adapter gasket. I don't know, should we do this level sensor? Probably. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Some new crush washers for certain things. RTV for the other little mating surfaces under there. New coolant hard lines, thermostat, water pump, metal water pump pulley, and a serpentine belt. And yes, that's what we're gonna do right now. Damn, you could have been a welder.
Could have.
Okay.
Still got time.
I give everybody props who likes to do all this stuff with the motor still in the bay. I'm not with it.
Torqued to spec. Click. What's that, 14 foot-pound?
I believe the proper spec is good and tight.
Alright, so this man's over here picking out the oil level sensor gasket. I'm gonna go ahead and pop our oil filter housing gasket in. Let's freaking take her over, pop her on. Get on there. Maybe. Son of a bitch. Now I'm gonna go ahead and throw our new Gates thermostat on here. Cool, there's that. Throw our water pump on quick. The Euro part.
It's much easier if you do this before the oil filter housing goes back on.
Get on there. Set our shirt belt to the side for now. It's actually a really nice water pump pulley.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Ooh, it's freaking zinc goodness.
Nice.
Alright, we gotta go somewhere a little different for this next tool. Enriched white sandwich bread. I don't know how you like your pilot bearing, but I like mine no crust. So yeah, you shouldn't be eating this bread. It stays good way too long. I mean, it has been in the fridge, but like not a speck of mold on any of it. It's kind of bad.
That's the enriched part of it.
Really shouldn't be eating this. Ryan's dad made us a really fancy tool for this.
Yes.
Yes. More enriched white bread. More bread. There she is, boys.
Yes.
Boom. Boom. Yeah.
Looks good for my house.
How tight are you supposed to be? That?
Yeah.
Maybe just one little more wrap on them all.
Fucking chipmunk or something living in the alternator apparently. Son of a Bosch.
Blows them farther in. Engine is pretty much reassembled. I'm gonna throw this flywheel on. Gonna look for our little guide piece. Yeah, quit moving. Alright, flywheel's on. Get a little bit of spline grease up in here. Gearbox side. That's how you know. Boom. You look good on there? Yeah. Boom. Alright, clutch is on. Throw bearings done. Trans can now get blown back up. So it's Monday. We're back here today. We went to Drift Nirvana, took a break for Sunday, but we kind of left a little bit early. Came back here, crushed out, hooking basically everything up for what, hour and a half, 2 hours after we got back. And I think all of us were just too exhausted, but we powered through that much and decided we'd finish it today. So that's what we're here doing. We dropped everything in, hooked everything up, put some coolant in it. Well, just some distilled water because we'll probably end up draining and kind of doing a flush with that. Same with the oil based off of what we saw in there before. Threw some ATF in it, hooked our drive shaft and everything up. Basically everything we undid in the very beginning of this. So yeah, now you're gonna get a little time lapse of us just putting this whole front end on, then we'll bleed the coolant and then we're done. Oh, also throw the exhaust on. Yeah, it's time lapse montage.
at the atom. Where do I even start? July 5th, 1991, you were my first child. Born after day of independence, and just like America, felt my life was just beginning. I was so ecstatic. There was a feeling in the air, not to be dramatic. I would've killed just to see you happy. Gave you to my dad to hold, told you that's your pappy. And you both just started laughing. You matter more to me than anyone else in the world now. But it's a dark place, my son, don't ever burn out. You are your father's child, he is his mother's son. So I'm not worried about how you gon' turn out. Knew it couldn't be as good as it all sounded. Father locked you in your room and wouldn't let you out it. Knew that he was cheating on me with some dumb bitch, cause he would get defensive every time I questioned him about it. No, you didn't understand, you're older now, you know why I left your father's boat in the middle of the road. I'm heartbroken cold, if it wasn't for your sister and yourself I'd be alone. But I thank God for my summer child.
Alright, so that wraps up this video. We did a ton of shit to this thing. Did the single mass flywheel conversion, new clutch, oil pan gasket, oil filter housing adapter gasket, new thermostat and coolant neck, new water pump, a fancy metal pulley. The water pump has a metal propeller. Look at the nice zinc bolts right there. New SERP belt, intake mani gasket, throttle body gasket. So we reseated your injector that was pretty messed up. Pop a new vacuum hose. Yeah, I think that's good. She's fully bled now. She's a ripper. But yeah, thanks for watching.